Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. Let's crack on with today's first story. Much love, guys. Now today's first story comes from the Bridezillas subreddit from Jungle Juice 172 and says bride wants advice and opinions, then keeps getting mad. I'm a bridesmaid in my friend's wedding in June. Some backstory. My friend is currently in university and has an upcoming medical school interview, so she's been very stressed. Since she got engaged in the summer, she has no idea what she wanted to do for colors. I and the other bridesmaid suggested that she order some swatches from Azazi, pronunciation on that one, I apologize, so she could start building a color palette. At Christmas time, she still hadn't determined her colors, but she wanted to go shopping for her flowers at a local silk florist. Originally, she wanted to design her own bouquet, but before even going shopping for those flowers, she ordered $400 worth of flowers from Temu, all of which she isn't using now. Now that she has her flowers picked out, she still can't come to a decision on colors for her bridesmaids' dresses. She originally wanted to get dresses from Park and Fifth, so she went to the store and tried them on herself and loved them. Her sister, who is her maid of honor, hated all the dresses because of the style, form-fitting and silk. This past weekend, I got a text from the bride to show me the colors she had chosen. There was a dusty lilac, agave, yellow, blue, and a peach. She asked which color I would feel comfortable wearing. I said any color she wanted me to wear, I'd more than happily wear. She then said that wasn't a good enough answer and that she wanted my opinion. I said again that any color would be good. So she picked purple for me, and that was good enough by me. She has said to us bridesmaids multiple times that we can pick whatever dress we want as long as we're comfortable. But then she asked me to send her the top dresses I liked so she could pick. I agreed and sent her the ones I liked. She asked out of all of them which was my favorite, so I told her, and then she said that it wasn't hers and she preferred a different one. I said to her that I wouldn't be as comfortable in that one if that's what she was concerned about, but I would wear it happily. She asked for some time to think about it and she would get back to me. About an hour later, she was freaking out after thinking she found her bridesmaid's dress colors and then realizing they didn't look good with her flowers. She asked for advice and said if she went with her gut and stuck to only agave, it would look beautiful with the other color navy. But then she said she should have simplified her flowers if she wanted bright colors. It became a whole thing, and she can't change her flowers now because she already has them. I also explained to her out of the 1,000 photos her photographer will take, 10 to 15 will be with her bridesmaids, and also a photographer has a very muted style, so that I also change the colors in a picture. Then all of a sudden, she flips a switch while I'm telling her that all of these ideas are all very pretty and will work. She then says, I think agave is the way I want to go. I think it'll look great on everyone, and I'm not asking this time, I'm just telling. At that point, I was so confused because she wanted our opinions as to which color we liked. Only 2 of the bridesmaids got to pick what they liked. I told her I would wear anything. Then she said that she doesn't want to come across as pushy. And I told her she wasn't being pushy. Finally, I asked if she was looking for opinions or for us to tell her that we didn't like the color that she wanted us to wear. It's her wedding, but she is so wrapped up in what other people will think that's inhibiting her to make a decision. I said the only thing that's making her sound pushy is when she tells us we can wear whatever dress we want, but she wants to pick the dress. I explained that if she wants us to feel comfortable, that's not how you go about that. At that point, her fiancé texted the other bridesmaid to tell her to casually mention to me that I was being rude and that the bride was incredibly offended that I didn't like her favorite dress because I liked my favorite dress. But the bride never communicates. When she's offended about something, it ended up being a whole thing, and I later apologized to her for coming across as aggressive. But I also said to her if she's seeking opinions and advice, she can't keep getting mad when someone gives her advice or opinions. Bear in mind, for my wedding, this girl is also my bridesmaid and told me the dresses I wanted for bridesmaids were ugly and she wouldn't do her hair how I wanted it done. She later tells me that she won't kick me out of the wedding and that my opinions and advice are incredibly valuable to her, But every time she asks for my opinion, she just gets mad at me. So I've determined she's seeking validation and just wants everyone to agree with her all the time. That's my Bridezilla story. This is incredibly exhausting to me. Bloody hell, you're exhausted, I'm exhausted as well, and I'm only reading probably a fraction of what's going on here. But I imagine there's a lot more that you could probably add to this story, what she's been doing. But like you said, your friend doesn't want opinions. She wants validation. She wants everyone around her to say, yes, that's perfect, you're amazing, etc. And then the fiance texting other bridesmaids to try and put you in your place. That's just wild. My first thought was just Gray rocking her, and whenever she says anything, say, yeah, I love it, your call, absolutely amazing, just keep going down that path, or just be done with being a part of this at all. That's kind of my feeling in some ways. I read some of these stories these days, I'm just like, you know what, fuck that. But a commenter said to OP, whatever you were doing before isn't working too well. If you're having this much stress now, then maybe you need to speak to the bride and see if you should just come as a guest. She'll probably freak out, but your mental health is your first priority, not a wedding. OP says, I fully agree with you. I had a very similar situation a little more than a year ago, and the bride and groom ended up kicking me out of the wedding party. I've been told that I'm very blunt, and that comes from years of working with only men. So I see the world as black and white and yes or no. No ifs and or buts, it's just what it is. My boyfriend has also helped me not care what others think anymore. I feel terrible telling her that I don't want to be a bridesmaid, but in some sense, I think she's also upset because my boyfriend and I just finished designing my engagement ring, and in her world, she's the only one who can be engaged at a time. Her sister got engaged shortly after her, and she texted me being all salty about it. And I told her that it's not the end of the world. There can be more than one bride in this world. She didn't like that, but I didn't know what else to say to her. In another way, we're often competing about things, but that's what girls do. But everything my boyfriend and I do, she wants to do with her fiance, but he isn't interested. Her fiance has also made more comments than necessary about how pretty I am, or that my boyfriend is incredibly lucky to have me. So he gives me weird vibes sometimes. Ooh, dearie me. Commenter says, you need to learn to turn into the skid with people like this. You can validate her feelings. She was hoping to be the only bride and she's frustrated at her sister because her expectation doesn't match reality. That doesn't mean that she should act on these feelings, but she just wants to be seen. Yes, bride, it must be frustrating having your family's attention and energy split. This is a really great tactic to take with toddlers also, by the way. Show her that you see her but don't validate her acting on these feelings. Opie says another great point, thank you. Sometimes I feel like I need to react to her issues like she's a toddler. She's also 22, and I'm almost 25, so our age differences and the fact that I'm second youngest in my family and she's the oldest really shows how we deal with conflict. Someone says about the bride sounded like she was unsure of herself and kept changing the rules on goals for the wedding. Opie says, oh, for sure. I don't know fully how she was raised, but her parents I know didn't raise her to have so many issues making decisions. Even the week before her boyfriend proposed, she was talking about how she wasn't ready to get married, and sometimes I think she needs to think about that again. She wasn't ready, but the diamond got flashed in front of her and it was her moment. She never told her boyfriend she wasn't ready, and he should have known that because she's caused so many issues. Commenter says, girls and good friends, regardless of sex, don't compete. They lift each other up and support each other. Anyway, if I were you, I'd drop out. It's only going to get worse from here. My god, 500 words about flowers. I can't wait until she has to choose the food. Opie responds saying, I just feel like since the day we met, it was always competition. I went on birth control. She had to go on birth control, but she was too lazy to remember to take her pill. She was fine taking plan B and rubbing that in my face because my boyfriend and I decided we wanted to wait until marriage now. We bought a camper. Now she wants a camper so bad so she can renovate it like we were doing ours, and she can tell me that it's not that much work. It's a lot of work when it's too cold to work on it outside and you work full time. Sometimes I think our friendship is more forced. My other friends that are true and genuine friends, I never feel like we're competing for things. When they get married, it's the best time ever. They have kids and it's amazing. Oh, for food, it was decided 2 days after they were engaged. Hot dogs. And one more commenter who says, why are you entertaining this bullshit? I I couldn't even finish the post because the bride is so annoying. Just don't go to the wedding. With people like her, friendships often end with a wedding. I had a pick-me bridesmaid. I didn't care about the dress, just keep it a lighter color or anything about their looks. She insisted on getting a skin-tight wedding dress for her bridesmaid's dress. I just uninvited her the day of. I told her I didn't need her drama anymore, as she always has behaved like this. Never spoke to her again. Where the bridesmaid got married a few years later. She was furious that a wedding she planned in 2 months was 2 days after I was scheduled to give birth. I wasn't a bridesmaid. I don't really talk to anyone from my wedding. They either died or got married themselves and split off from the friend group. No animosity except for Tina. We just grew apart right away. Opie says, in a way, I feel like I have to entertain it because this is my boyfriend's cousin who is getting married, so I don't want to burn bridges in a family. But yeah, honestly, this just adds to reasons I hate weddings. But Opie came in with an update and said this weekend the bride had a bachelorette party. We're from Manitoba, which is in Canada, so it's the bride's party job to plan and pay for the bride to attend. The weekend began on Friday at 7 p.m. We all drove to the bride's condo where her and 2 of her other bridesmaids live. We went to Activate and had a blast. We came back after that and had snacks and drinks and did a lingerie shower for the bride. Ended with some games and went to bed. Saturday was where crap hit the fan. We went for brunch in the morning and then went on a pedal pub. The bride decided it'd be a fantastic idea to order 2 punch bowls, margarita and mojito, at the first location, and she had about 15 cups of it. She was drunk by our first stop. At her bachelorette, she can enjoy herself. Then we had 2 other stops where she continued to drink, and then some of the girls wanted a sangria tower, and all hated it but had to drink it anyways. The walk back to the vehicles was slow for the bride. We asked if she'd be okay and ready to go to a Mexican restaurant for 8. She said yes, so we continued on. Then the bride started puking. The friend driving had to pull over 4 times for the bride to puke. Some of us suggested maybe ordering pizza, getting into comfy clothes and watching movies instead of going to this Mexican restaurant that would turn into a club at 10 p.m. The bride refused and ended up passing out on the bathroom floor back at her condo. Had to go get her some electrolytes. She also puked 2 more times at home. We ended up getting ready to leave for the restaurant over an hour later than planned because of the bride passing out. Not a big deal. Now, keep in mind the bridesmaid that planned most of this bachelorette trip is pregnant and in her first trimester and was dealing with a terrible cold as well. So we got to the restaurant and the bride was angry that it was their late night menu because it was after 9 p.m. She also didn't want to drink anything. This is important to know for the rest of the story. So we ate some appetizers and waited for the restaurant to turn into a club. Now the girls that were there for her all didn't know we were clubbing except for 2 of them. So when we heard about this, some girls were confused. So 10 p.m. rolled around and the dance floor opened. The only things the bride wanted to do on her bachelorette weekend was get drunk and dance. But she wouldn't dance until 12 a.m. At that point, she had made the entire group annoyed because we drove all the way to this place that she loves just for her to not want to dance. Out of 9 girls, 6 of us all hate clubbing, but we were all there to do what she wanted. So her sister, who is a maid of honor, explained to her that if she wasn't going to dance, we would be leaving. It took another half an hour of getting the bride out on the dance floor, and at this point the bridesmaid who planned everything was nauseous from the smell of vaping and needed to go outside, and she asked me to come with her. That's when she started crying. I asked her what was wrong, and the bride, who is this bridesmaid's future sister-in-law, had said to another girl that she just wanted me and her to leave because we weren't even dancing with her when we had danced a bunch. But the pregnant one was cramping, tired and nauseous and felt that everything she was doing wasn't good enough for the bride. At the end of it all, we all left at 1:30 a.m. Everyone was mad at the bride for making such a scene and then of all things wanting to go clubbing and not even get tipsy. She wasted everyone's time and wasn't grateful for anything that was planned for her. She complained the entire time and made all of us feel horrible for trying to plan something fun. Now that this weekend is done, we're counting down for when our wedding is over. This has been a crap show. And we have more of this chaos in a moment, but a commenter says, I think you all should not take her seriously at all and do what makes you happy. That B doesn't care for you, so why should you care for her? Opie says at this point, I don't give a royal crap about anything for our wedding. She says one thing, then another thing, and has zero respect for those who are there for her. She's having a social 2 weeks before their wedding, and it goes from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. Due to medication I take for migraines, I cannot stay until that time and drive myself home safely because my meds make me sleepy. So I told her that. She wasn't happy, and I don't really care. I also hate wedding socials, clubbing, all those things. She has no respect for those of us with limits. Opie explains what a wedding social is and says a Manitoba thing where you have tickets that people can buy at the social. They can buy drinks and tickets for prizes, and all of that money goes to the bridal couple. A Manitoba way of saying, get drunk and give us money. Commodore says to OP, honestly, it sounds like this woman is about to lose all of her friends because she can't communicate, doesn't appreciate anyone's efforts to try and figure out what she wants, and then shuts down and blames them instead of taking accountability. Best of luck with the wedding, since I'm sure you've all paid for dresses and everything. But no, it's possible for you to still drop out if you want to, and I think it'd be justified. Opie says she's becoming quite the piece of work. She's in my wedding as well, and she's been quite difficult to deal with. She's been on a short leash with me. I don't want to kick her out of my wedding party because I was kicked out of one that was in the family, and that caused a lot of issues. I don't mind having her there, so as long as she has some respect for those around her. She'll get told that she can't get hammered. Commoner says, good lord, between the wedding flowers and colors and this, how are you friends? Opie says, honestly, I'm trying to chop it all up to be the stress she had with trying to get into medical school. She didn't end up getting in, but she texted me earlier this week to ask if she could have a conversation to clear the air because she felt there was tension. No shit. I explained to her that she'd been very disrespectful and ungrateful. She didn't respect the fact that no matter how many times I explained, my medication makes me very sleepy, so it's hard to stay up late. The most recent time I explained this to her again was the Friday of a bachelorette party. She came back to me and said that she didn't understand the specifics of why I took medication, but she would have been willing to come to a mutual agreement had she known. That's just straight up ripped me because I have now explained this to her 3 times in the span of a week, and each time she claims I've said nothing and I have the text to prove it. So a bit over a month later, Opie comes in again and says the wedding from hell is this Saturday. And the groom texted the pregnant bridesmaid this to pass along to the rest of us. I have 0 words. Check out my profile for the other parts of this story. Who would even send this? What the actual heck? And then there was a screenshot of the text messages which said, the maid of honor said, time and we'll make sure bride has a blast. Opie says it's basically just transpired overnight, so we're all sort of pivoting to make it work. Bridesmaid said, I was under the impression that Redacted had brought this up, and she had told me this was the plan a while back, and let me know yesterday things had changed. The groom said, going forward, if anything else comes up, could we just make sure there's a bit more communication? This is my and Redacted's first time being part of a Canadian wedding party, so we want to make sure we're doing everything right to ensure Redacted's wedding lives up to everything she dreamed of. This was not brought up with us, at least not in a way we understood, but it's okay. Now we're all on the same page. Opie says, this is my first time being in a wedding too. Part of it is a lot of last minute things. Governor said to Opie on the back of that, the bride absolutely wrote this so the groom could send it. Opie says, oh, I think so too. This is such disgusting and childish behavior. This is 100% directed at me because I'm getting married in October, and the bride has mentioned that she gave me permission to get married in the same year, and I should be grateful. Commodore says, wait, he sent this to his pregnant sister, the one who planned this girl's entire bachelorette party. Thoughtfully, I might add, only to be treated like shit. The bride's future sister-in-law. This bride sucks. Opie says that's right. Now we're all supposed to stay the night with the bride too. I was looking for every excuse in the dang book to not spend the night. I was planning on having a quiet morning before this mess and go for a walk to clear my head, drink coffee, and now it's not going to happen. I don't know what to do. I was even going to do a speech to be nice, but I literally have nothing to say. And I'm the one bringing 3 mirrors and 2 huge coolers for them to borrow for drinks at the wedding, and I'm ready to forget them all. Commodore says, yeah, the text is requesting for people to focus on her wedding for the next 2 days so she can have her moment. A moment is a brief time. I think technically 90 seconds, but I won't be particular here. Not 2 entire self-absorbed days. And that probably on top of the weeks, if not months, of similar demands and displays of self-absorption. Hope your reply saying, it's just the part. So for the next 2 days, I don't care if you want to get married or are getting married or are married or anything else, please for us, for the next 2 days, can we just keep this about the bride's wedding so she can have her moment? Is what really rips my gitch. Gitch? What's a gitch? Apparently, it's a Canadian slang term, particularly used in Manitoba. It says for underwear. I like that. This is directed at me 100%. She's hated that we ended up getting engaged and are getting married in the same year as her. Her maid of honor is her sister, and she's getting married in August. So you can only imagine what the dynamic in her family is currently like. Then OP comes in with another update saying, here's the wedding update you've all been waiting for. The day began on Friday. After a bunch of thinking, it wasn't worth a fight with the bride to not stay the night, so I stayed. 2 of her bridesmaids tried to make the excuse that it would make more sense for them to drive an hour and a half back home and then come back for 8 AM the next day. So we bullied them into staying, even though they tried to say they wouldn't sleep good. Well, it didn't matter if we didn't have good sleep because it wasn't our wedding. We got up at what felt like bright and early on Saturday morning after getting into bed at 1 AM, and we hit the ground running. Hairstylist showed up at 8 and then began the getting process. We only technically had to be ready for around 3 PM, but with 6 girls to get their hair done, it does take time. Anyways, we had brunch, got our hair done, and had watched the bride battle with doing her own makeup and her eyelashes not cooperating with her burgundy mascara. I just laughed. I was in the process of putting false eyelash clusters on and doing my own makeup to really invest in her issues. She was being incredibly critical of everyone's makeup, telling them to blend more, bronze more, and make it super glowy. The bride didn't gift anyone anything, except the sister, whom she brought shorts and a sweater from Bridezillas. I was a little confused, but maybe not giving your bridal party anything to thank them for going through hell with you is normal. Her parents also don't like to use air conditioning, so the temperature in the house was so bad, 26 degrees Celsius. Approximately 79 degrees, and we were in shorts and hoodies as requested by the bride. Then about 15 minutes before the photographer arrived, the bride sent me and another bridesmaid to go and get the wedding bands and other small details from the groom, because she forgot about flat lay shots. So we rushed to the groom's house to go and get those things, and we made it back with a few minutes to spare. During the rush of everything going on, the bride was still finishing her vows. We eventually went outside for the bride to have a private moment with her mum, to put her dress on and do her first look with her dad. That's when things continued to drag on. The bride was freaking out and panicking through it all. Then we did our first look with her, got her back inside and prepped to do her first look with her soon-to-be husband, and then things started to fall even further behind. We at that point needed to be at the wedding ceremony location for 5 PM. For bridal party photos, and the bride and groom only showed up for 5:30. At this point, we were running around trying to make sure last-minute things were in place. We started to learn and hear about things that had gotten lost in the midst of moving things under the cover of the tent in case a potential rain came overnight. The guys were sent to the ceremony location the morning of to put everything back, and the bride should have known things were going to get lost if there wasn't anyone there to make sure they got the location of items right. She had a friend as her day of coordinator, and that person should have been there. The first thing lost was the guest book. It was placed in a box and then put off where no one knew where it went. We ended up finding it about 10 minutes before the ceremony. Then we were trying to find the pens. The bride said she ended up losing them, and we had to find something else. We're on a farm with no house on it, nothing, and every pen and Sharpie we tried didn't work. Then we lost all of the decorations like flowers that's supposed to go on the guest book table. Then came wedding party photos. We started with the girls, and I noticed a dark spot on the bride's dress in a few places and realized it was blood. So I said something to the bride, and that's when crap hit the fan. The bride's period had started. This is where I had started to laugh because I knew this would happen, because our cycles have always been 1 week apart and I just had mine. So obviously panic set in for her and we had to fix this. So we rushed her to the porta potties to help her fix things. We used double-sided sticky tape and safety pins to get things covered because she didn't want to use a tied-to-go pen. Then the groom started yelling at me to go and get safety pins, and I had zero idea where those were, and someone came with a few. This is why you make a wedding day emergency kit. We eventually fixed the situation and were already behind with the bride and groom needing to start family photos. We continued to run around even more, and the bridal party started to get hungry. Both the bride and the groom said they were giving us supper, and they didn't give us any. So you can only imagine after being in the heat all day and only having brunch, you get a little hungry later in the evening. So no supper, and it quickly moved to 7 PM and it was time to start the ceremony. We had to get the bride's veil back in, after she took it out for bridal party photos, and I gave it to her dad with the bobby pins to put it back in the camper that was on the yard. And he lost the bobby pins, so another bridesmaid took a bunch out of her hair to secure the veil. Then, while we were waiting to all go out, the bride was pissed about how the bottles of wine and water were arranged on the tables and started to yell at us to rearrange it all. And she was also missing in action for 20 minutes before this, and we eventually found her freaking out in the camper. The ceremony began. It went well, no one fainted thank goodness, but I thought the bride would after she only had a sip of water all day and almost no food. Then we all stayed until 3 AM to make the couple happy. The disorganization of so many aspects of this wedding was enough to blast me into orbit. Being yelled at by the groom to bring safety pins when I had no idea where they were was horrible. Some of her bridesmaids were useless and just kept sitting down instead of helping with things that were needed. The groom was also calling the bride a bunch of times during the morning because he didn't know where things went, and it made her freak out. But we couldn't tell him to quit it. So glad this wedding is over. Finally, the bride is going to continue working towards her masters and will be living an hour and a half away from her husband during the week for the next 6 years. She will also keep trying to get into medical school during this time. So I'm not quite sure how you have a successful marriage when you only see each other 2 days a week. But she wants to keep living with her roommates, and her husband doesn't want to move close to her and have the opportunity to actually live together. Opie added one more wedding update, and it was titled Call Me What You Want, but we tried to support the bride the best we could, and the bride was happy everyone stayed with her for the night. It wasn't about us, it was about the bride. And a lot of it I can see is just a recap from the previous post. There was some additional bits of information in there, so I'll just gloss over those really quickly. How they helped set up the wedding, but it was blistering heat, there was flies and mosquitoes that they were getting bitten by, how they all stayed the night, how they were up at 8 AM doing their hair, and again how the temperature was so high because the parents don't like to use air conditioning, so their hair was frizzy. About the gift giving again, how only the sister receives something, and then mentions that when you spend $5,000 on flowers, she could understand why the bride had money for nothing else. Opie mentions about the lack of food all day again and saying it was a dessert wedding. Also about how the bride was incredibly critical of everyone about doing their own makeup. And just overall, the wedding was incredibly unorganized, and Opie's just glad it's over. Someone asks on the back of it, what in the world is a dessert wedding? Something people do when they're too cheap to properly feed their guests? I feel sorry for the pregnant woman not getting adequately fed. What a trashy and inconsiderate bride. Opie said we only had dessert, not an actual meal, and a bunch of their aunts made dessert, so they didn't pay for it. But yeah, it's a real cheap way of getting out of making sure guests are fed. I've been to one other wedding like this, but they had an appetizer bar, which was stocked all night and was delicious. Another commenter says, was this part of the update where you helped the bride to bully two bridesmaids to staying the night when they didn't want to? She was awful. You also behaved awfully just so you could make her happy. This whole thing sounds insufferable. Opie says, I mean it when I say it, that we were kind to these girls. We explained nicely that the bride wanted this but never communicated clearly. She lives with these girls and she wanted them to be there and not make the long drive home. They would have had 4 hours of sleep. We said to them that if they stayed, they'd get a lot more sleep. I shouldn't have said bullying because we didn't do that. We stayed for the bride. It's what she wanted. The entire wedding wasn't about us. If I didn't want to stay, I didn't have to, but we did it out of the kindness of her because it was something she really wanted. This wedding wasn't about us. It was about the bride and trying to do something to make her happy. The girls who lived further away ended up sleeping super well and were grateful to have stayed, and they were staying the night at the bride's parents' house after the wedding anyways. Someone says, what did she do about the bloodstains on her dress? Did she have a spare? Opie says no, the groom asked if she had a backup dress, but we just covered the stains by flipping those sides of the dress and taping them with double-sided sticky tape and using safety pins to pin other pieces back. And you couldn't tell what we did at all. Someone says on the bride treating the bridal party badly. And Opie says, yeah, she did treat us like crap. The stress of a wedding is no excuse to treat us like that. I get that weddings bring out the worst in people. For my own, I'm being considerate of the fact that my maid of honor will be 8 months pregnant, but she is still determined to be up there with me. And I've said to her that she doesn't have to, but we're making sure a lawn chair will come with during pictures so she can sit down in between. My sister will also be 4 months postpartum, and she still wants to be in my wedding. She'll be nursing at the head table, and I don't care because I love my new nephew. The bride didn't let her nephew come to their wedding. Bloody hell. I just felt like some of the comments were saying at the end of this, the whole thing was just absolutely exhausting. But I couldn't help for myself that feel like OP and other bridesmaids enabled this shit that was going on. OP retracted the bullying stuff, but still convinced these bridesmaids to do so, even though it sounded like they were real reluctant and felt uncomfortable staying there, into sleeping over. The repeated comments, it's the bride's day, basically so she can do whatever the fuck she likes apparently, is enabling a lot of this nonsense that was going on. This bride is going around screaming at people, being absolutely awful, and a lot of it I was just thinking, why? And this person, the bride, is still a part of your wedding party after all this, and even from the very beginning when she was telling you that your choices were ugly. The friendship just sounds exhausting, competitive, and one-sided really. And just because the wedding is over doesn't mean that her behavior is going to stop. I imagine it's going to show its face in your wedding as well. And I just kind of feel like that's someone I'd certainly be taking a step back from. But what do you guys make of this situation? Holy moly. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the story, your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.